You know that moment when you tell yourself you are going to start tomorrow. You will wake up early, be productive, finally get your life together. And for a few hours, you actually believe it. But then tomorrow comes, and suddenly you don't feel like it anymore. The energy is gone, the excitement disappears, and you are back where you started. Now, here is the part nobody talks about. There are people who don't rely on that feeling at all. They don't wait to feel motivated. They don't need that burst of energy to take action. And somehow, they get more done than everybody else. Not because they are more talented, not because they are more disciplined, but because they have understood something most people haven't. Motivation is unreliable, and building your life around it is a losing strategy. In a world obsessed with feeling ready, these people act anyways, and that difference changes everything. Let's start with something simple. Why does motivation feel so powerful? Because when it is there, everything feels easy. You feel focused, clear, driven. You think, this is it. This is who I am now. But what you are really experiencing is a temporary emotional state, not a personality shift, not a permanent upgrade, just a moment. And like all moments, it fades. That's the trap most people fall into. They treat motivation like a requirement. They believe they need to feel ready before they begin. So when the feeling isn't there, they don't move. They wait, they delay, they overthink, they plan, not because they are lazy, but because they have been conditioned to depend on a feeling that was never meant to be consistent. But people who don't chase motivation, they broke that pattern. Not because they always feel like working, but because they don't expect to. They understand something crucial. Action comes first, motivation comes after, not the other way around. Here is where it gets interesting. Your brain is wired to conserve energy. It doesn't want you to work harder than necessary. So when you think about doing something difficult, it resists. It creates excuses, doubt, distraction, not because you are incapable, but because your brain is trying to protect you. Most people interpret that resistance as a sign, a signal to stop. But people who don't rely on motivation, they interpret it differently. They see resistance as part of the process, not a warning, but a starting point. And that shift alone changes how they operate. Now let's talk about something deeper. Why are people so addicted to motivation in the first place? Because it feels good. It gives you a sense of progress without requiring actual effort. Watching a video, reading a quote, planning your future, it creates the illusion that you are moving forward. But nothing actually changes. This is comfort disguised as growth. And most people stay stuck here for years, waiting for the perfect moment, the perfect mood, the perfect version of themselves to finally show up. But people who don't chase motivation, they let go of that illusion. They don't need to feel inspired to start. They start and let the feeling catch up later. Now here is something you will notice. They rely on systems, not emotions. They build routines that do not depend on how they feel that day, because feelings fluctuate, but systems, they stay. They remove as many decisions as possible. They don't wake up and ask themselves, do I feel like doing it? They already decided who they are and what they do, so they act accordingly. That is what creates consistency, not burst of motivation, but the absence of negotiation. Now let's be honest about something. This approach isn't exciting. It is repetitive, sometimes boring, and that's exactly why it works. Because real progress isn't dramatic, it is built in small, unremarkable actions, repeated over time. People who rely on motivation burn out quickly. They sprint, they stop, they go all in, then disappear. But people who do not chase it, they move slow, but they don't stop. And over time, that consistency compounds. Now here is where it becomes powerful. They have separated their identity from their emotions. Most people say, I don't feel like it, so I won't do it. But these people think differently. They say, I don't feel like it, but that does not matter because their actions aren't controlled by their mood. They are controlled by their standards, and standards don't change based on how you feel. That's the difference. Now let us talk about discipline. Most people see discipline as something harsh, rigid, uncomfortable. But for people who don't chase motivation, discipline is freedom because it removes uncertainty. They don't have to decide every day whether they'll show up or not. They have already decided, and that saves energy. It simplifies everything. And here is something most important nobody will admit. Chasing motivation is often a form of avoidance. It feels productive, but it keeps you safe because as long as you are getting ready, you don't have to risk failure. You don't have to prove anything. You just stay in preparation phase indefinitely. But people who don't rely on motivation, they step into action sooner, which means they fail sooner, learn faster, improve soon, and that's why they grow faster. Not because they are smarter, but because they engage with reality more often. Now let's talk about consistency. This is where everything comes together. Consistency isn't built on feeling good. It is built on showing up when you don't feel like, on the days you are tired, distracted, unmotivated. That's where the real progress happens. And people who don't chase motivation, they understand that. They expect those days. They plan for them, and instead of stopping, they lower the intensity but keep the habit going. Because they know something important. Doing something small is always better than doing nothing at all. Now here is the part most people overlook. Momentum. When you act consistently, even in small ways, you build it. And momentum creates motivation naturally. Not the forced kind, the real kind. The kind that comes from progress. From seeing yourself follow through, from proving that you can trust yourself. That's what builds confidence. No hype, not inspiration, just evidence. So let's be honest here. Living this way isn't comfortable. You won't always feel excited. You will not always feel proud. Sometimes it just feels mechanical. But over time, something changes. You stop depending on motivation completely. You don't need it anymore. Because you have built something stronger, self-trust. You know that regardless of how you feel, you will show up, and that certainty is powerful. Now think about the long term. Most people spend years starting and stopping, waiting and restarting. But people who don't chase motivation, they just keep going. And that creates a gap in results, in skill, in progress, not overnight, but over time. And eventually, that gap becomes undeniable. And now here's a final truth. Motivation isn't useless, it is just not reliable. It is a bonus, not a foundation. And people who understand that, they stop chasing it. They build systems instead, they build habits instead, and they build discipline. And in doing so, they build a life that doesn't depend on how they feel to move forward. So if you are someone who struggles with consistency, who keeps waiting to feel ready, who starts strong but can't seem to continue, just know this. There is nothing wrong with you. You have just been taught to rely on something that was never meant to last. And once you stop chasing motivation and start building, everything changes. Because at the end of the day, the people who succeed aren't the ones who feel the most motivated. They are the ones who show up even when they don't want to. And in a world that runs on emotion, that might be the most powerful advantage you can ever have.